Hey, welcome to Master Sharpening Series. We're moving on from basic to intermediate, which is part 2. The last 17 lessons, 14 lessons, 17 videos, you learned how to go from a dull knife to a pretty good sharp knife, which is this. Something sharp enough that will shave all the hair off of your arm, as you can see, very easily. We just stopped there, which is sharp enough for most people, shaving stage. If you've gotten this far, you're ready to learn how to get even sharper than that and do a lot more stuff with it. First thing we're going to do on this next step is what we call stropping or strapping. Been around for a few thousand years. You can only get so far with a stone or an abrasive. You can't really get much further than that. You can get really sharp like this, but if we're going to go on to surgeon scalpels and industrial sharp and impressively sharp and stuff, we got to go to stropping. Couple points on stropping. Number one, be real careful doing this. There's a lot of opportunity here for you to cut yourself very badly, so pay attention to what you're doing, pay attention to my technique, pay attention to my safety steps here. Otherwise, you can hurt yourself quite badly. Number two, we do stropping dry. Some people use a powder or talcum or whatever. A lot of possible techniques. It's not that any of those techniques are wrong. This is the way I do it. I do this dry with no oil. You don't want oil on your leather because eventually it soaks into the leather and starts affecting it. So we do this dry. Pretty easy to do. Most stropping is step one, step two. First is remove the burr. Step two is actually polishing down the edge on it. Pretty simple stuff. Quick example to start. The knife we had here was already done. For the most part, it's got plenty of sharp edge. You see I've already dried the blade off. I'll just wipe it off again. Make sure it's plenty sharp for us here. Double check, make sure the blade is good. It's sharp all the way down. When you're doing stropping, you cannot get to this step unless you're already to the razor edge, which or razor state, which is what I'm at right now. If you try to just start stropping off your medium or your coarse stone, you're not going to do anything but ruin your leather. You can only strop once you get beyond razor stage. It's very, very important. Once you got those things, this is after razor stage. Any stropping before, it's really not going to get you anywhere. It's just going to take you forever and you're going to get sick of it and you're going to wind up getting injured or ruining your leather. So only done after the razor stage. After this intermediate, we'll be moving to a lot of other steps and stuff, but so far as stropping, several different techniques to do this. Not that anything else is wrong. I just do it my way because it's always worked, and I can get an edge all the way down to where you can probably split the nucleus in your cell and split your DNA, but not actually damage anything else. I can get this knife as sharp as you want it beyond. When we get into advanced sharpening, we'll explain some more of the physics and theory and metallurgy behind why some knives can go sharper and other ones can't based on the metal. If it's 440 stainless, 440C high carbon, 304 non-ferrous, 308 some ferrous, 318, all these different grades of metals, why some get sharper than other ones and why some do not. Real simple stuff. For this stropping, it essentially works on most all metals, which is good. If you have regular cheap mild steel, it works fine. It's not that even it's a cheap metal, it's just a general metal. Your grandfather might have shaved his face with an old kind of metal. It worked just fine. You can use it on 440 stainless or anything like that. Advanced metals, cheap metals, amalgams, alloys, all the different kinds. Stropping will work for that. Equipment, what you're going to need to do your stropping. Obviously leather is the main use. There are some synthetics, and I have a canvas here I'll show you. One is leather, two is canvas, and we'll just keep it at that for now. Advanced lessons later we'll discuss more, but regular leather, of course, looks like regular cow's leather. You can use hippie leather, sheep's leather. On this particular leather, you see we have the rawhide on the back side, which is kind of rough, and the tan on the front, which is a bit smoother. That's the regular leather right here, you see. There's also the canvas, which is part 2, which is this, which I usually use as part 1. This is actually a pretty thick canvas. You can see I've really used up this side of it a lot. It's real good if you can get it. If you really want to get into this serious later and you're doing a lot of this professionally also, or as a master or advanced professional, get one of these. Personally, I kind of like the selective brand of leather. It comes from Pakistan. The Pakistanis seem to do whatever tanning process is they use in Pakistan for their cow's hide leather. It seems to work really good for stropping. That's why I use it. Not that any other kind of leather is wrong, but personally, I go with Pakistani leather, Pakistani canvas. This is a real heavy kind of canvas here, 1/16 of an inch or so. It works really well for the deburring stage. You can do like some people do here. Take your regular, foot-long paint stirrer, wrap you some hippie leather around the top of it, glue it down. It's nice and flat. That will work. You can see I've got some oil stains here just from being in one of my sharpening kits. It's not that it's wrong or it's useless, but you see a few oil stains. I personally don't prefer those, but that works for a good strop also. Something flat for doing tools, something you can bend. You put a lot of tension on this. It has a hook on the end so I can hold it to stuff, get a nice good stropping going. Pretty simple for your equipment there. So we've covered when you can use it. Got to be safe doing it. I always do it dry. It's a 1 to 2 step process. We'll explain. You can only do it after razor stage. Works for any metals and equipment. You can't do any stropping without some leather. You can get some of the synthetic stuff, pretty expensive, may not work. You can get your regular strop like this. You can make one. Personally, for years and years, I used an old 20-year-old leather belt I had from the 80s. Leather works. The older the leather, typically, as a general rule, the better it is. If you have an old leather belt in your closet you want to take down and you're tired of wearing it, doesn't fit you anymore, that's fine. It works perfect. It's the right width. That's all you need. An old leather belt will work perfectly. The older the better. If it's only 5, 8, 10 years old, it might still have some of the chemicals and oils in it, which make it not very good. But otherwise, a cheap leather belt, go to your local thrift store or Goodwill, you get one for $1. That's all you need for years or decades. So we'll move on to part 2 here shortly, getting into the stropping.